Okay. So we're good. I'm up and running and you can
You
hear
are
me.
good to go. All
Great.
yours.
Okay. Yeah. So my name's Becky. I run Rooted Flowers and it didn't always start as Rooted Flowers. So I'm going to kickstart this presentation with kind of my story. And I think you're going to find some nuggets along the way on how I've shared and then just to inspire you in speaking of your story and garnering an audience. Because when I first started growing and selling, there was no social media. I didn't engage in Facebook. I did nothing. I didn't even have a smartphone. I sold vegetables on the side of the road. So I've been growing and loving it for a long time. And when you first start trying to get an audience with nothing, I think social media, it was a game changer for me because sitting on the side of the road, it took years to get an audience. And it wasn't until I got on social media that that expansion reached. And then I was really able to sell things. So without social media, I'd probably still be on the side of the road, maybe. But here we go. So this is the picture of our current farm. We're in Agawam. I think on one of the social media posts, it said I was in Hadley, and I used to be. So since Hadley, I have actually bought my own piece of land and have grown the farm. Uh-oh. Here's a little bit of my timeline. I started growing in 2009 and I was just puttering around with vegetables in a greenhouse. And it's interesting hearing Amy talk. I'm definitely a visual. Like I love pictures and I oftentimes, I'm regretting I didn't write something down in a journal. But now with the smartphone, I just take pictures of everything. So like last year at this time, what was going on? I know I've got a catalog of photos to tell me what was going on versus referring to like a written garden journal. And that translates into the social outlets that I'm drawn to. But so here I am puttering along with vegetables. The green Subaru Impreza, that was my first stand. I sold corn on the back of it. So I used to work for a vegetable grower. And one day I said, don't pay me, just pay me in a couple bags of corn. And then I went home and I started selling. And then I started developing that I started building stands. That's what the wooden carts are. I was never set on growing cut flowers. I just wanted to make my stand prettier. I wanted there to be an experience for people when they came to buy my vegetables. And I wanted them to feel something. And I think we can all kind of resonate with that with flowers. So my area in Hadley, where I was growing, was saturated. Farm stands everywhere. So flowers to me was a way to differentiate. And the first patch I grew at the bottom of 2014, it was really a study. I opened it up so people could pick their own, but I wanted to learn how flowers actually grew. What happened when you pinch, what did different cultivars do, this and that. But to get some money back from the seed and the labor putting in, I opened it up to pick your own. Learned a lot, talked to people. It was a fantastic experience. But then the year after up top, I pulled the field back away from the road and then I started really growing for production. And then in 2016, that's my first wholesale order going out. So when I first started, this is what my communication to the public looked like. I had little business cards. It was Becky's roadside stand. And it was a pop-up tent. I went into barns, I found old stuff, tomato boxes, and relied on word of mouth. Then I changed it over. I started getting more into branding and I wanted my name off the sign, changed it to Rooted Acres because I was surrounded by family at the time. So Rooted was kind of my way of not only being connected to the land, but my family. And Acres was just different. It wasn't farm. I just thought it was kind of a classy name. So and yeah, that was it. So I started incorporating the flowers. That little mason jar with the snapdragons was one of the first arrangements. And boy, it doesn't take long to learn and to come a long way. So you can see in the jar, there's a bunch of foliage. Like I didn't even strip it. But so here I am plugging along, growing, loving it, learning about business. And then I went on a hike with my dog that black dog, Kentucky. She was a boxer. We got to the top of a local mountain, and I said, I really need to figure out what I'm doing here. And I said, I'm going to niche down to flowers, because it was really starting to garner interest, and people were coming to me saying, hey, can you do my events? And I was like, well, I don't know. You really want me to grow your flowers? I was used to other stuff, kind of the imports. And so I took a picture and I said, that's going to be my logo. And I dropped acres because I wasn't growing on a ton of acres. I only had 2. And I said, I'm going to identify as River Valley Fresh Flowers so that people know when they come to me what they're buying, because Rooted didn't necessarily reflect the product, just kind of like my mission and values. And so that was the first label. And then I met Albert, and Rooted Flowers was born when we bought our piece in Agawam, and that was 4 years ago. So in that process, I had my first baby, Mary, and then Julia wasn't too far along behind. And the flowers represent my relationship with my children, because really that's my why. I didn't know that I didn't know I'd have children. I knew I was going to grow something, but once they came along, it's kind of, when things get tough, like that's what I grab onto. That's my North Star. And that's what shows through in the branding. And it really wasn't until I got to Agawam and we moved that I really dove into branding to kind of outreach to the audience more, and to show them, hey, we're your flower people, come to us. Consistency became really important. So the images that I'm showing you here are stuff that I would show on social media. The picture in the upper left, that's when we closed on the house. And the story behind that, I mean, that was such a struggle. It was the longest government shutdown. We waited 6 months to close on this. We filed 4 times with an extension, and the seller said, hey, we're done. We're not filing again. And there was a recent post on social that I explained that story a little more, and how it became full circle. But it took me a while to get that out, because it was such a traumatic thing. It was my first experience buying a piece of land. And, and I think that's something too about social, is you may not be ready now to share, but it's part of your story, and you might grab that nugget later on, because anything that you feel is super powerful and definitely something worth connecting with your audience. The 2 pictures in the middle, top is before, bottom is kind of midway through the cleanup, and the lower right is where we're at today. And once I started focusing on the branding part, that's when I would reach out to professional photographers and see if maybe we could swap, or if they would come to the farm and I could pay them for a session. But that bottom right is a professional photo. And it's really nice to have galleries kind of tucked away that you can pull from for photos, because that's one thing I struggle with, is taking pictures of myself. Super easy to take pictures of everything else, but to get myself in can be kind of tricky. Let me see. So Rooted Flowers has developed into including my family. And that's a big part of my messaging to my customers, especially local, is that we're a family run operation, and we're real. I try to be as authentic as possible. I know when I have a personal moment that kind of grabs me with the girls, I'll find a way to kind of share that, because that's when I get the most engagement. Another mother will comment, a grandmother, they're reminded of something, and you just touch them. And that's, kind of what you're doing, is developing a relationship with people distantly. So this is funny. I have a couple pictures that aren't showing up, but that's okay. So I'm always trying to tell my story visually, and every brand needs a story. I find this even subconsciously, if I go to a store, I'm looking for something and I see a bunch of options on the table, the cereal box that doesn't have anything isn't going to grab me as much as the cereal box that has like the family holding hands saying, from our table to yours. And these pictures next to show your story. They're beautiful. They're nice. They're going to garner engagement and say, okay, if I want pretty flowers, I'm going to go here. But the person that's actually holding that beautiful bucket and showing their audience, I think just takes it a deep further, and there's a bit more of a connection. So although these are great pictures, I almost feel like the ones before where you see like the struggle and can probably feel the struggle are even more engaging. So real life, real people connection. And that's also part of my mission with what we do. That's why I love to farm. That's why I love community, is that connection. Once people do feel more connected to you, you more likely have a customer or a buyer. And that's kind of what we're doing with social. It's a tool for us to get to more people. Let's see here. I don't know. So, and it's, once you start documenting and you start sharing your story, so the lower left, that's a picture of me and Mary and Hadley. And then on the right, that's Mary and I just a few weeks ago bumping up plants. And it's kind of cool too, just to see the growth in that. But, and people, they follow that. I've got a lot of people who still are with me that were with me in Hadley. And the upper right photo, something I like in this one. So that's Julia. She's 6 weeks after she was born. I'm designing on a table. It's a leftover table that was in the basement of the garage that we had bought, and we're just making it work. And I like showing that rawness to people that, hey, we're not polished. We're working from the ground up. But no matter what, you're still going to get beautiful flowers. And so actually I'm going to circle back on that, but it came full swing when the pandemic hit, reaching out to the audience, because they really helped us. Lower right is just a photo that, that's stuff, that type of stuff always does well. Anything with abundance, beauty, and just to have the little girls lingering in the background, like they were there, they were cutting, they were stripping, they were present. They're truly part of the operation. And so, different ways to illustrate your story. But I'm always thinking in the back of my mind, what's the angle? So like the girls in the back of the mule there, that 4x4, we had a lot of dahlias that week to move. So I'm going to start posting a lot of dahlia pictures or whatever I need to move to not only garner excitement, but to get the buzz going that, hey, we've got these, and then get people out to us, either ordering online or coming out to our farm stand. Okay, social, consistent. So in some way, shape, or form, I'm trying to reach the audience on a daily basis, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, a blog. I'm dabbling in YouTube this year. I found that as I've grown as a quote unquote creator, I'm truly a grower first, but I've found myself interested in YouTube. And as I've gotten more comfortable with my voice, I'm able to articulate more. So I'm dabbling into it because it's a whole different platform and audience hangout, and we'll see where it goes. And that's the best thing that you can do, is try, because when you do make mistakes or hiccups happen, you're going to learn the most from there. You're going to learn what you're comfortable with, and you're going to learn like what audience is there. Do you want to engage with that or not so much? I'd like to take the pressure off some of the other ones like Facebook and Instagram, especially Instagram, because I think it requires a little bit more attention to the audience. And so we'll see how all this works out, but I'm really loving YouTube because I'm feeling it really resonates with my personality. So what I find works with me in kind of generating content is by documenting the farm, documenting stuff I already need to document. Like I'm going to be planting Lisianthus. So I'm going to document that not only for me. I want to know my dates. I want to know my planting spaces. I want to see the condition of the crop when it goes in, all of the above. That's also valuable content to share with my audience. especially when we're getting ready. Well, one, to keep them engaged. Hey, we've got this beautiful crop going in. It's going to be ready in the coming months. But then when I'm also ready to sell this crop, I can take them along the journey of where we went with this crop. And it gets them more engaged. It feels more real. They know, hey, this Lysianthus didn't come from somewhere else. These people really grew it. And they showed us all the hard work that went into it during the process. So when you feel dry or you feel like you don't have anything to grab at, I'll often ask myself, what's relevant? What am I doing right now? What season are we in? Right now, I took I don't want to say I really took months off, but my due date is on Saturday with my third child. And so I decided that I wasn't going to do winter growing. So instead of growing and having flowers blooming in February, March, I've been creating content, and it's been in regards to seed starting. So I'm just trying to keep my audience engaged. I'm here. I've had questions in the past about how to start seeds. So I'm grabbing at that, and I'm just educating them right now and saying, if you're interested in cut flower seeds, here's some go-tos. Here's some things to start now. And we even offered up a seed kit to get people jump-started that are new and feel like they don't have a green thumb. So I really, and that just is coming from the audience, whether it's a poll, a survey, somebody sent me an email, somebody dropped a question in a conversation at the farm stand. It's just kind of have your radars on. And when people say something, oh, hey, that's a nugget. Maybe I can revisit that in the future. What season are we in? Yeah. So what needs to move in the shop? That's always something that might motivate what my content might be. Like, oh, we've got a surplus of Lysianthus. I'm going to post beautiful pictures all week. People are going to be just chomping at the bits to get their hands on this. And then if I'm really in danger, like I've got so much, I'm not sure what to do, I might reach out and ask for help. And when you're always giving, you can receive. And I've found that to be true with the pandemic when we were primarily event-based up into the pandemic. That's how we made our money. I did not do roadside stands. I had stopped that when we got into Agawam because this place was a total rehab. There was no place to sell. And we didn't do any online sales. We didn't do any local delivery, nothing. So when the pandemic hit, we lost events. Within 24 hours, I had an online shop up and we were doing local delivery. The only way I really got that word out is I put a call to help out to our audience and asked them to share and say, hey, this is what we're offering now. Can you let people know? And that was huge. And that set off a whole new sales channel. What's coming up in the pipeline? Like right now, Easter is just a few weeks away. We've got bulb pots going. So I will start talking about it now to garner some interest. And then as the date gets closer, or when our pre-sale goes up, I'll start sending that information out, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, email, newsletter. Can't emphasize that enough. And don't think you have to generate new content for all these channels. You've got one nugget, and then you just create your copy of what that information is, and then you just send it out to everything. I don't do any apps that will do that for you because I like having the control of the presentation, how it looks in each channel. So I just pick my few: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and then that's it. Can I offer care tips? When you make your audience more successful, they're more likely to come back. Meaning when we send out our Easter centerpieces, they're not only going to have information with the product, but I'll post content on how to care for it. What's it going to do? When it passes, what can you do? And keep them engaged and interested. And I find when I provide care tips, if they didn't see it in the beginning, the offering, they're going to buy during the care tip process, because whether they missed it, they now at least feel more encouraged and I guess probably confident that they'll be more successful, and that can convert to sales. So create versus consume. whenever you get on your social, just try not to consume first because you're going to go down a rabbit hole. And that just was my piece of advice. So what I'm showing you here are some of the different outlets and ways I'm educating. So the right picture is our current different blogs. I released one this morning on raised garden beds. Now, I didn't think I was going to do that a few weeks ago. It wasn't until we launched the seed kits. I had a couple people email me saying, hey, I don't have a garden plot, but I'd like to grow flowers. What can I do? That generated for me an idea for a content piece. And my solution for that was, well, have you ever considered a raised bed garden? And that became a whole blog post. And I haven't really talked about it on social yet, but that's going to be something that I release today, tomorrow, the weekend. And it's also evergreen content. Like we can keep revisiting that for years to come. A couple examples on the phone are what winter care tips for centerpieces, how to grow paper whites. And then on the left side there was my interpretation of, videography and getting onto YouTube. So the nice thing about is if I record anything for YouTube, I can take those snippets and now I can make a reel for Instagram. That reel can then get posted to TikTok. I can take that video and also post it to Facebook. So you're just reusing all the content you've already generated. But as you know, different people hang out in different platforms. So you're just trying to reach different people. So I thought this is interesting. So the left side was like my top 9 or something over the last year. And those are reels. And what I'm looking at here is, overall beauty, abundance, and what I'm selling, flowers. So I was thought, oh, let's bring this up so you can take a look at what's performing well. And then on the right was posts. So they weren't reels. And this is strictly Instagram, but I can say this echoes across all the like Facebook, that when I show more abundance, color, it's a bright spot in somebody's day, there's gonna be more interaction. And when there's a story, like if I really take a story from the heart and invest some time in it, I'll get more engagement. And then on the right, the right side was just posts. So what I see here, I usually get more interaction when I include the whole family and then a teaching method. So the evergreens that you see, I was showing how to make a wreath, and the upper right Lysianthus one looks kind of boring, but that was actually a call to help. So I asked the audience to share the post because we had an overabundance of Lysianthus due to the high temperatures and that we'd had recently in the weather. So I include this picture of the Christmas stuff because we didn't have any infrastructure to sell on the side of the road. So I said, okay, let's bring in a seed container. This was our farm stand up until last year. We put this box in the front of our driveway and it was a walk-through farm stand. And it's been a piece of the story and it's been a piece of content. And it was kind of sad to see it go when it went, but just embracing what you have. Here are some apps that I've used that I think are great intro apps. I'll say now, I don't really use Vimeo because I'm using Adobe Pro. Like it's a video editing app that just has a little bit more capabilities because I'm actually doing it on my desktop. But all these apps are great for editing on your phone. If you're going onto Instagram, even TikTok, they can be. I notice sometimes that if I edit on Instagram, it gets a little funky and it doesn't always save properly. So it's nice if you're in an app, you don't lose it. I don't know if it's a glitchy thing that will happen to me sometimes. But if you want to like speed up something, slow down, stop motion, that's when you're taking a series of pictures that you stitch together and you'll be like, well, where's their hand? How are they moving those eggs to make a circle? they do it in stop motion. So you move something, take a picture, move something again, take a picture, and you don't necessarily see a hand. This circles back to my story about the pandemic. So first batch of flowers leaving our greenhouse, going out the door. I took a picture, I posted it. That was our first picture online in the online shop. And then the bottom right just illustrates, that was a video I take and posted. But I'm showing all that, and I'm showing the audience because you got the word out, and now we're able to move these flowers, and thank you, just engaging them, bringing them in. And, I don't always share the high and lows, but this was a big one because this was a big game changer for the business. So here I pulled up my last 3 posts on Facebook. I'm always doing one of the 3: entertain, educate, or inspire. So the upper left is what we have going on right now. So we had a big snowstorm this past week up in New England, and I posted, hey, nor'easter's coming, but spring is on the way here. Just trying to get people excited, and also put that notion in their head, hey, they're going to have Easter. They're going to have a Easter holiday offering. Bottom is I shared a blog post, and it was right around the time of the storm. So I made sure I showed some pretty pictures of flowers to pick people up. And then on the right side is not really for me. I'm speaking at a conference here. It's a local conference. It's a women's conference. And the title of my panel is The Power of Perseverance. So kind of on brand, and definitely something that speaks to our customer avatar. So I included that as far as content creation, and I shared a story, and it had to go back, and it went back to like my roadside stand days where people would kind of question what I was doing. Like, you waste a lot of time doing this. Why do you sell stuff on the side of the road? Like, are you sure? And I knew they didn't get it. I knew I had to start somewhere, and that's where I started. And just the power of sticking with it. And now, I was able to get my own piece of land and continue to grow. So it also resonated with International Women's Day. So kind of thinking, what's going on, what's relevant in the world. It happened to be a holiday that was happening. It's a conference that's coming up. The ticket sales were going on relatively the same time. And it's something I also hope to instill in my audience. Like, you want to do it, you can do it. And just an inspiring story. So these are screenshots of my Instagram. The one on the left is the first photos that ever went up. And so this kind of goes back to, this was a personal account at this point. Like, I was just sharing things I was doing. And they're pretty boring. I love them because I've got that itch. So, greens when it's snowing out. Oh, that's fun. An empty bench I'm going to fill up. That's cool. But it definitely doesn't speak, I would say, to my audience today, because they don't really understand that empty bench. No, show them a bench full of plants, like bustling and green. And I had used some filters at this point because I was kind of dabbling. I wouldn't recommend filters now. I think just the real, raw, authentic stuff is fun. And it's kind of all over the place. I've got eggs, asparagus, strawberries. The picture on the right is when I niche down to flowers. And, you can tell it's not fabulous at this point, but I'm just showing people I grow flowers. They're pretty. And if you want them in abundance, I've got them. So that was my angle at that time. And today, I think things look a little bit more polished, a little more consistent. I feel like I've got more of a handle on the story. So with content creation and your social media outlets, kind of going, who is your ideal follower? Like, who do you want to sell to, or who is coming to you? I think that's huge in trying to figure that out. And I think that changes. Who I was selling to in Hadley isn't the same customer per se that I'm selling to now. And in the future, I think that will evolve too. Local audience, national audience, What are you doing? Are you shipping nationwide? Are you just selling in your local community? That language is going to change depending on who your customer is. So I can get some of these statistics from our insights on social. I know our audience, most of them are between the ages of 35 or 25 and 55. They're over percent of them are females. Most more are local. And then, they have gardening interest. They're inspired by beauty. A lot of them have families, and because they're messaging me, they're relating. And then when people reach out, what can I teach them? And it's based off of their questions. So, and if you're not sure, I've done this, you just poll. If you've got a newsletter or your social account, poll your audience and ask questions to help give you direction on what you should be showing them. This I was just bringing back to, I think you can see how things just a little more polished. I'm getting better at photography. I'm looking more to natural light, abundance. Back here, or when I went back, it wasn't as nice. So as far as my overall concept of what I'm sharing with the audience, 80% of it is the good stuff. 80% of it is, yes, things are beautiful, things are thriving, we've got perfect crops. My children are happy and they're not crying and all of these things, right? And 20% of it is not. But so here are some ideas, a photo of you, because who's the person behind the product, and just have your product and show it in front of you, blur yourself out. It doesn't even matter, but just be there. What do you have coming up? What are you offering? You don't really know what to do, but it's a gloomy day. You just post a beautiful picture, perhaps, and maybe you have a little story behind it. And the kids, customers, you can always leave reviews, testimonials, a selfie with an armload of flowers. That's always a thing. Throwback. People love hearing the beginning. And when even in making this slide, I thought, wow, this is a blog post in itself. Rooted a timeline and review of where things started, because it was pretty shabby in the beginning, the broken down cardboard boxes, tomatoes, all of it. And tell a story. Stories, they really do. They resonate with people. People want to feel and tell your story. So less popular, off brand, 20%. So not so much, but recently I shared in one of my stories, suiting up to go out for this storm. I've got some young shrubs that I don't want to break. And the reality is I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shake all that heavy snow off of them so that I can keep them. And for me, that's pretty raw. Showing myself, like putting on these clothes in the wee morning hours. It's, I'd like to think I'm pretty personal, but I felt like it was pretty relatable, and that's raw and that's real. Nothing's on a 9 to 5 on the farm, and then nothing's in perfect conditions. And yes, I may be knocking on 40 weeks, but this is what's got to get done, and it's going to get done. So relatable. And then the lower right picture there is my grandfather passed away this past year, and I would consider him our first flower fan. So and it's funny because when you go back through all my pictures, I really don't have a picture of a male anywhere, but I do have my grandfather, because he used to come over when I was back in Hadley at my little farm stand and just get a bunch of flowers because it reminded him of my grandmother. So when he passed, I shared that with the audience, how our first flower fan is now laid to rest. And it got a lot of engagement. And just true, I think, staying true to your heart. So here are some tips, some things that kind of relate to the algorithm that I've read. Not posting more than once in an hour. It could trigger spam, and you do not want that. Having too much text on top of a post can do that as well. So I just put it in the caption. Using salesy words, act now, limited time only. And I also think, kind of too, as a reader, when I'm feeling really sold to, it kind of turns me off. Make content count, but when you're speaking from yourself, you can do that. Don't copy and paste the same hashtags, kind of old news there. Mix it up, you know, and it might be helpful for some to create like a content calendar. I know myself, at the beginning of each week, I write down what my week looks like. And then I have a line just for posts. So this week on Monday, what did I do? Oh, I don't even remember at this point. I've definitely got that brain going on. But Monday, let's say we'll do a shop roundup, like what's available in the online shop, and try to get some interest there. Tuesday, I know I've got a blog post coming out on raised beds, so maybe I'll start hinting at that. Wednesday, I might put a plug in, hey, sign up for the newsletter so that you can get the, you know, prompt on the blog post. And then Thursday, I'm reminding people about the blog post. And Fridays and Saturdays, I try to share something about us, whether what's happening, just something about the story of us. And on the weekends, it's usually just raw content, like what's happening, because we're usually really buzzing with something. But having a schedule or a structure to your week, that can really help, and then take out the kind of boggled mind and scrambled eggs of like, what do I do here? This picture is showing least engaged posts over the last year. And what I just see here is my posts, the content, they create, the caption underneath wasn't really filled with anything, especially the one with Julia. Like I would think that would have taken off a little bit more, but I didn't have a good storyline there. Like I just kind of was grasping at straws and I put something up. And they're not, the pictures themselves alone aren't super colorful, and they're just not really stand out. So I just wanted to poke fun at myself and say these were poor performers. And another thing, if you're in a rut, follow inspiring people, and not necessarily in your niche. Follow people that's what they do, is they create content ideas for you, and you just spin off of that. And that can be something that's super helpful. These two people down below, Good Egg Marketing, Myrna, she's local to me and somebody that I had encountered in a business course for farming. It was something I had to do for a grant. And this woman was she's been in the industry of marketing for a really long time and has done a phenomenal job at just staying super current, and just has a really good understanding of the back end and analytics. So if you need any assistance, or you're looking to lean into somebody on how to kind of get around all these algorithms or something, she might be a consideration for you. She also wrote a book specific to farmers and marketing, and is totally somebody worth checking out. And this woman on Instagram, Marketing for Farmers, Kendall, she's kind of like your marketing pal, like, oh, I'm stuck in a rut. Oh, I'll go look at Kendall's page and see what she has for inspiration. And, you know, some people jive with you, some people don't. It's a pool of folks out there to learn from. So a little safety on social. You know, I'm always on guard, especially because we do share, not overshare the family situation, but I do share. So here are some tips to consider. Never tell people when you're leaving town. Don't give them dates, times, nothing. And if you do tell them you left, don't tell them till after. Get back to town and then tell them about your experience and everything you enjoyed. Because that's the whole next thing, is like digital security. And their stories are out there. People have gone into people's homes knowing they were out of town. So, you know, this is the same with clients and brides and bridal bouquets. Don't post the pictures before the event. Wait till after and talk about it. Especially too, if you've got multiple events on the same day, don't post any pictures till it's way gone, because somebody might say, oh, I thought that was my bouquet. Or, you know, Aunt Susie sends over the picture, hey, it's coming. Just sometimes you have to be a little bit more strategic and wait on things. So here's my contact information if you have any questions. I don't use the phone. We had one. It doesn't work for me. email is great, and social can be tough getting the messages there, but we'll get back to you. And so let's circle back. Oh, my picture. I had a picture there. I don't know where it is, but it was the picture of my 3 girls and then our symbol overshadowing that. So that's it.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you, Becky.
Oh,
I can't believe you did this just days before you're due. That's amazing. You're a force. Any questions for Becky? And so I guess one experience I'll share is about trolls and scammers all over the place. You know, Becky had this beautiful giveaway set up, and that I entered. It's like, oh, great, you know, and immediately I got a response, you won. I'm like, really? That was fast. So I'm like, great. And Becky reached out. It's like, nope, sorry, it was the scammers, you know. So we've had that happen to us at our community garden, where we've actually been set up to do a farmer's it was a holiday market. And we had folks reaching out to them and having them pay by PayPal, even though, you know, we weren't even charging, I think. And people had paid and expected a slot, even though these were scammers doing this. And so I don't know if you figured out a way to prevent that or not, Becky, or how much of a hassle that ended up being for you, because I'm sure it was annoying having to.
Well, yeah, you know, it stinks, but it's beyond my control or whoever's doing it control. And that's where and meaning, so these people just set up an account that looks like yours. So the one scammer in particular put like an extra L in Rooted Flowers. So it was really easy to overlook, but it wasn't me at the end of the day. And I can't do anything about it except report it, but they usually block the person that they're trying to copy. So it's the followers that have to report the person. And that's what ended up happening. And there was a lot of people who picked up on it and were aware of it, and then they reported it and it went down, but then I can't do anything about it. Like I can't do any legal action or anything.
No, it's just one of those things you have to be aware of is out there, and maybe just have a little response prepared once it happens to you, that we're sorry, this is completely out of our control. You know, this.
But it's good to find out, because then you can just make an announcement on social that, hey, this is what's going on. And now, you know, you're more of an informed social person that, hey, this can happen and here are some red flags.
Yeah. And so Jenny says that she's been blocking trolls and scammers and stalker types. Her husband is a retired Marine, and she strategically shares that on social media platforms, which has helped him, and he is always present with sales on the farm, etc. Yeah, so just for an extra layer of security, it's hey, I'm not just this single person here, there are others around me. Absolutely. Right, any other questions or comments for Becky or Amy?
Denise has a question in the chat, and I'm just trying to get a little more information to better serve her. Do you have any suggestions for flower sellers to follow? So my question is, well, what type of seller? Because there's a lot out there. I mean, you know, it's kind of interesting now. You can see big growers like out in Europe and Holland who are showing their operations. Roadside stand.
Sounds like she's brand new. So what would you recommend?
You know what, a great way to kind of figure out people is using the hashtag, like use flower roadside stand or like flower stand. And then you'll see people who are using that hashtag with relative content, and you can start poking around in there.
And you can also use let YouTube help you by following don't eat the grass. Is that who we love? Yeah,
don't eat the grass.
Or Root Design, and start clicking on those kinds of flower farmers, and then YouTube will just continue to bump up, and you can, anyone who's on YouTube has a social media following as well.
Facebook groups, if you go into, let's say if there's a flower farmer Facebook page, you can then search within that group, maybe farm stand, and that will kind of funnel your interest a bit more.
Then not next week, but the following week, we are going to have some social media experts coming in and really talk about sort of manipulating the metrics and things like that to get your intended audience. And while it's great to have a national, international following, especially if you're doing educational type content, you're really trying to convert those views into actual purchases at your stand. So we'll talk about on that final class that we're doing ways to target your audience. And I know for my CCE programs, if I'm doing something virtual like that, I tend to try to cast a wider net in terms of geographically. I'm really gearing this series towards Northeastern farmers. So I boost my posts to go out among the Northeast. However, for local programs where I know people need to be in person, I can actually target any boost that I do, which is not that expensive to do, but within a 15-20 mile radius, knowing that these are the folks that I really want to come in and be here physically. So also local groups. I mean, you talk about where the trolls lurk. We have one called News Around Delhi that just, you put your mental health at risk anytime you post on there, because people are going to say things to you like, just call you out on anything, basically. But it's still a great way for people to learn about you and your products and what you have. And as long as you're not spammy with it and doing it every single day to the same group, it really is a good way to spread the word about what you're doing. So that is one of the benefits of Facebook over Instagram, are the groups. Yeah, any other feedback on getting local audiences, Becky? Because that's primarily I mean, I know you have followers from all across the globe because your content's so beautiful, but what's the way that you really know you're getting it to the people that you're going to sell to?
You know, in the beginning, especially when I was just getting onto social and my audience was truly just local, I would incorporate hashtags that spoke to that. So like 413, Massachusetts grown, Western Mass grown, and post to those groups, like Western Mass growers, you know, where are these people hanging out? And I would probably do more. I was doing more giveaways. There's less spammers because your local people are going to share to other local people, and then trying to figure out how you can do that, how you can kind of pay it forward. So when we first started doing local delivery, it was like share this post, and then you and your friend win flowers. But that was really great tentacles in networking.
Oh, that's awesome. Great advice. Any other questions?
Trying to think. I don't know, but it does get exhausting sometimes. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. It gets easier too.
And I do feel like almost, you know, something's better than nothing. You just have to put yourself out there and get started. I know it's just like overcoming inertia or whatever to begin posting. And then once you get that feedback and you hit your stride, then you can really build on that.
Yeah, when you don't know what to do what you do best, and you grow beautiful things. Just show the beautiful things. That I feel like that's like the easiest place to start. Because before I even offered events, because I showed so many beautiful flowers, the interest came to come get flowers from me. And I didn't really know how I was going to sell them because I couldn't sell to a florist to save my life. They didn't want to buy from me because I wasn't predictable enough. You know, they couldn't order in advance and secure stuff. And so that's where selling in season flowers for events became a thing for me. What, you just take pictures as you go. So you cut your first handful of snapdragons, you throw that right on. You take maybe a couple different angles. I didn't have a backlog either. As the flowers came in, I took pictures and that was it.
Yeah, or maybe even share something from your life that's related. Like you can show a picture of your desk that you're in your day job and say, you know, I do this to make it so that I can live my dream of being a flower farmer, or my life is changing, or there's always things that you can tie in, even though it's not that beautiful flower image quite yet. At least they know something's coming. Julia said she'd be committed if she shared her desk. Yeah, same. Oh yeah, but hey, I'm a horticulture educator. There's supposed to be dirt on my desk, right?
Oh, geez.
That's
First year
great.
growers, I mean, first year growers is such a great hashtag anyway, because you're going to find an organic audience, because people will be like, oh, she's starting out too. And to make those connections early on, you know, like Becky said, like there's people who've been following her since her babies were teeny tiny. You make you have an audience of, you know, walking through it with other people, that increases your reach as well, right? You've doubled your reach just by finding like-minded people.
Something fun when you don't have flower pictures, like, I don't even, Johnny Seeds, guess my seed, right? So you've got your plugs going, you're growing things, guess my plug, trying to get people engaged. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a flower, but you've got this, the future of the flowers. Let's talk about it.
Right. And I'm loving these days, what's wrong? What's on my eucalyptus leaf? And, you know, and it's remarkable how many opinions there are, and how many of them are just totally wrong. But engagement on asking people for help is huge. Don't you think, Beck, when you're...
Oh yeah. And you're real, you know, people I think also like to see that you're not this iconic, untouchable piece. Oh wow, she has a question and she's a real person. Like, yeah, I'm all over that.
Or a fun one to do is just to be ridiculous and say wrong answers only. And then the comments are absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
I love responding to those because I come up with some good wrong answers.
The engagement can come in the strangest form.
And Lindsay said, just tell your story from the first seed, watering to picking. You know, you can follow it all the way through its lifestyle cycle. And that's really fun to have for things like TikTok, because there are all, for those of you who aren't on TikTok, and I'm very new to TikTok, I'd say within the first, I've done it for about a year, and I blame Amy. But there are so many sounds that you can use, and there's trending sounds that people like to see used over and over again. But there's that one, can we skip to the good part? You know, you could have like your seed and then, you know, have that picture now and then use your beautiful field of flowers later. Or the one that I really like is, I'm carrying your love with me. I won't try to sing that, but I envision like having blue Chinese forget-me seeds stuck to my leg, because that always happens to me. But there's just, you know, see what's trending, what other creators are doing, even if they're not related to flowers. There are some good gardening TikTokers coming on board now, more so than there were in the past. When I first got on, I wasn't seeing that much garden content, and now you are seeing a few gardeners on there. And oh, Miranda's asking, she said she feels repetitive in her responses to the feedback after a post. Is it okay to keep saying thank you? I feel ya. Yeah, it's like, you know, and it's usually my mother, so it's like, okay, mom, thanks, mom. Thanks, mom. But yeah, what's your advice, Becky?
I don't think so. I think anytime somebody responds to you, it's it's pretty cool because I feel like we kind of all know how overwhelming social is. So when somebody responds to you in any light, there's a definitely a token of appreciation because you took your time out to say something. And it's also good to maybe if you don't do it immediately, I don't know, there's some thought that if you respond to comments immediately in the algorithm, your posts will perform better. But if you don't and you wait, it's also a nudge, maybe a few days later, that, hey, this person just liked my comment or said thank you, because they'll get a ding about your engagement and it might draw them back in. But I try to make a point to say thank you or something on all posts, just because somebody else took the time to say something.
And somebody up above mentioned that we could, oh, it was Jenny actually mentioned, could we drop our different social media in the chat box? So if anyone wanted to follow other folks in that group, ours is on Instagram, Birdsong Farm NY, and on Facebook, it's just Birdsong Farm Community Garden, I believe. So that's us, but please feel free to drop it in there so we can stay in touch with all of you fabulous people. What's your journey? Any other questions or comments or success stories? Oh, so Lindsay, Facebook and Instagram, she is Adirondack View Lavender. Go see her Purple Paradise. And she's interesting in that she's her model is U-pick for the most part, but also does some cut flowers. Okay, so we've got the Flower Lady Kentucky and Jenny Hines and Holly Hollow Farm. We got Inner Peace Farm, love it. That's very cute. And Miranda is Butterfly Whispers, who is local to me. I'm excited to see what she's doing this year. So She Grows Flower Farm on Instagram and Facebook. Great name. Us flower farmers are very creative in our business names. Any other questions or comments? Oh, we've got the distracted gardener. Absolutely. I actually have not created any TikTok content yet. I keep threatening to, but what I really need is a much younger intern that's into that type of thing that will do it for me. And I have teenagers, but they don't tend to like to help mama out with those kind of things.
I think one thing I didn't really touch on, or just the collaboration of social, especially on a local level. Whenever a holiday was coming up, like Easter, I usually reach out to a local chocolatier and get some chocolate eggs to put in our centerpieces. But not only, you know, to promote them, but then they promote you and they have a whole new audience. So don't overlook collaboration for growing your audience.
Absolutely. We had a couple more come through. We've got Kelm and View Farm on Instagram and Facebook. Kelm View. And then Jessica is Jessica, I'm probably mispronouncing it, Ice on Instagram and Facebook, and she's going to be changing to Ice House Dahlias. Cute. I must have gotten it right because it's Ice House, right? And Lindsay says, if you have anyone tell your story, make sure to have them fact check with you before posting. That is wonderful advice. In fact, my family was just in the local paper for our bakery, and they had my husband's job completely wrong. And most people wouldn't, his former job, most people wouldn't know it, but a lot of local people would, that he was not in charge of culinary arts program. He was in charge of the campus auxiliary. But, you know, and to you, it's like a small detail, and it's really, I wouldn't even say wounding, but it's like, oh, sometimes they can get something cringingly wrong that's, could either be a wrong detail in your business hours or what you offer. So absolutely have them fact check. Lindsay, didn't you have an example of them getting something terribly wrong for you?
A couple. We had somebody, an agency do a video for the farm, and they used our LLC name, Adirondack View Vineyard. That was one. Newspapers, we've had, things haven't been completely on when they've posted. Events, that's been another issue, is we don't offer lavender picking in the fall, but we were offering like sunflowers and like a culinary lavender display, but they marketed it as You Pick Lavender. So people showed up for You Pick Lavender and were very upset with me. And we hadn't reached out to this outlet to be promoting. There's one more I was just thinking. But I'll tell you that when it comes down to like magazines, on the other hand, like they're really good about like sending the article ahead of time and having it fact check and going back and forth. So it just depends on like the outlet that you're working with.
One other thing I found with reporters and authors, that if you want them to get all the details right, just say, I'm happy if you want to tap out some questions, I can answer them via email, and that might be easier on both of us. And they're usually very, very receptive to that. And I found that the articles are usually better, and there's less misinformation in there if you're able to write it out and send it to them.
Yeah, because I even had recently I was just really excited about talking to the magazine and just started sharing. And I like to keep a separation, usually like when it comes down promoting the farm, a separation for my Cornell job and my farm. And of course I started mentioning I work for Cornell full time, and they asked, how do you handle everything? And so I actually I ended my conversation on the phone with them and went back and says, I need to like not put my full-time job in the farm. So they were really good about it. And I'm actually glad that I did ask them to pull mentioning where I work out. So just careful how much you share.
Yeah, because they don't know if that's kind of off limits, or say, can we go off the record here?
I am in a fly fishing video, and you can find it on Amazon. And they did mention I work for Cornell. I'm out there fly fishing. I was on my day off and everything.
Oh my.
But I just mentioned I work for Cornell University. So yeah, I wouldn't have actually put that probably in there either. So
at least they didn't say Cornell scientist or Cornell professor, sometimes they take a little bit of liberty. But in general too, just a little, I know this kind of sidetrack from what we're talking about here, but when you're working with reporters, a lot of times they're on a very tight deadline, and you need to provide them what they need pretty quickly for them to get things done in time. So sometimes that's where you can get your best opportunity, if you're willing to jump and give them what they need. And then they'll come back to you too if you're easy to work with, or if you have a big event coming up and you just kind of nudge them and say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this, or just letting you know this is coming up, then there's a chance they'll cover it for you. And which is so much more impactful than any sort of print advertising that you can buy.
And Carl, I want to add to that too, is definitely do the nudging part, but also understand it might take them a year to do it, because they might have to go to your farm ahead of time and take professional photos, because they don't want to use your photos from your phone because they need a certain quality. So it might take a while to get into some bigger outlets, but it's worth it in the long run.
Absolutely. All righty. Well, if there is nothing else, this has been a wonderful conversation with everyone here today. Amy, thank you so much for joining us. And Becky, best of luck with your upcoming seasons. And in Becky's case, new little person. Very exciting. And we'll be watching your Instagram very closely to see the announcement and see if Mary and Julia are getting a little sister or a little brother.
I said, as long as I get through this, I have this presentation today. I don't care when it happens. I just wanted to have this happen.
Thank you. Tell the baby, thank you for waiting.
Yeah.